What's up, Laker fans and general NBA fans? If you're here with us as well today, welcome to the latest episode of the Strive for Legacy podcast. And, this is episode 7. Really glad to be here with you. Want to start this by giving congratulations to Anthony Davis, who we did get an announcement from him that he has a son on the way. So a major congratulations to him and his entire family for that blessing that's on the way. Could be getting Anthony Davis Jr., getting those photoshops that the fans start to do, like how when Giannis had his kid. So it's a fun time. Really happy for him and the entire Lakers family.
Yep, hit the nail on the head over there. And I do think something to add on is kind of different from his last kid, because a lot of people were finding out that the guy had a kid during the finals where she was on the court with all the other kids. And so yeah, it's pretty funny. And I mean, Anthony Davis in general is kind of a mysterious guy, but some people take a different approach. And so yeah, congrats to him. And in 2044 or something like that, we'll see a couple rumors fly here and there.
Yeah. Might be the one to come back, and Anthony Davis Jr. might be the one to take over that 23 if LeBron doesn't get it retired. Hey, you heard it here first.
We're seeing here.
But we did also get a little bit of an injury update from him as well during the game. He let us know that he's just been rehabbing and getting the groin right. Playing a lot of video games, but he's staying active and getting ready for next season, which is exactly what you want to hear as a Lakers fan. As we saw at the beginning of the season, he never really looked right. There was, I don't know if you saw the Draymond, I don't know if he was on TNT or if this was like an Instagram Live, where he was kind of alluding to a certain star player who started the season really out of shape. And, a lot of Laker fans were saying it was obviously Anthony Davis because he did not look good to start the year, had some career low numbers. I think points per game, this was his lowest since maybe his rookie or sophomore years. So we know Anthony Davis can be a much better player. The title year, he was first team All-NBA. This season, he did not make the All-NBA teams at all. And I don't think he was really even highly considered. So, a healthy Anthony Davis to start next season, that lets you know, we can be in a lot better place. We have a much brighter outlook than, some other first round exit teams. So, feeling good.
Yeah, that description still stings a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah, it certainly does.
Take it with pride, though. We'll be one of the best first round exits in history. But yeah, I agree. I do certainly think that a healthy AD has been something that the NBA in general has sort of forgotten. You got a lot of jokes here and there, which I don't have a bone to pick on that one, with people being like, this guy gets injured, and there's just a bunch of comparisons that come with, whenever AD gets injured, there's certainly a different level of reaction than when other when other players get injured, but that's a whole different dialogue. But it is what it is. And I'm very excited for people to realize what Anthony Davis really is. There's been a lot of doubt, and it's kind of crazy because the finals ended sometime in October last year. So it's been, I'm not going to do the math. This isn't a math.
Yeah, not even a year. But we can just say it hasn't
under a year. We know that for sure. He's an NBA champion. People forgot what type of run he had. He was hitting all crazy types of shots. He was playing the best defense on the MVP last year. I mean, other than DeAndre Ayton, but that's random. But yeah, I mean, a healthy AD is certainly something to look forward to. And it just seems like this year, he never really found that stride until around the time LeBron got injured. And then it was just a bunch of, it was just not a good time. And you saw the impact that he had, especially with LeBron not being fully healthy and probably not going to be 101% anymore, but that's going to be very important. And I agree. I'm certainly a little excited for a healthy AD.
Yeah, and I'm gonna stick up for our guy. Obviously, he's a Laker. I stick up for our guys in the whole injury department because as far as the whole injury prone label with him, I think it's a little undeserved, to be fair, because in his years with New Orleans, there were certainly nagging injuries that kept him out. He didn't ever, play the whole season when he was with the Pelicans. But those were like nagging injuries. And when he came to the Lakers that first year, he made it a point to play through those kind of things. Like, people don't know. Like, he was listed on the injury report just as much last season. So he played through that. He's a guy that goes down a lot. But,
oh, yeah.
He can take the pain. He can get up and go through that. And this season, we had a very short turnaround. He went from playing in the finals to the shortest offseason in NBA history. Maybe he could have been better prepared to start the season. But, it is what it is. And then he goes down with an injury that keeps him out long term. But even when he did come back, like, he was starting to really look like himself. There was that regular season game, like almost at the end of the year against the Suns, where he had like 30, and that was like the moment where everyone's like, oh man, this Suns Lakers series really, could happen, and Anthony Davis is a matchup nightmare, and even in that Suns series, he was looking like a matchup nightmare pretty much aside from that first game. So that's the guy we're getting back next season, and you just have to feel confident that with a full off season to recover for both of those guys, regardless what happens around the roster, the Dennis Schroders, the Alex Crusoes, the trade, whatever happens, like, we have two all NBA level players that will be returning to this roster.
Yep, 100%. Now, speaking on a guy that we don't know if he's going to be 100% back next year, not because of injury, I want to segue a little bit into this because you are not a 100% Dennis Schroder supporter, and I would say not a lot of people are a Dennis Schroder $120 million supporter. So, what was his? I have a quick question. What was his original? It was 4 years, 84 or 4 year 80.
Yeah, it was like 4 year 80.
So that bumped up $40 million or 20 to 40. Now, let me ask you this: between that ask and now, would you say there's been a certain improvement, maybe a playoff run that happened that would sort of warrant that?
There was not.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
And this isn't any type of hate. This is just me being a little more confused. Now, it's not a direct source. It's not like Schroder was playing COD and he was just like, someone asked, what type of bag are you trying to get? And he was just like, well, 100 to 120 million sounds great. No, it's like a secondhand source, so you can take it as you will, but let me ask you this. I know you told me we're going to need a whole 2 minutes of you laughing. I don't think that's going to happen. It's a little too early recording for that to happen, but it's certainly looking less and less like the Lakers would at least match that, and I don't really see a reason to match that. But my question is to you, is there really a team that can approach 100 to 120 for Schroder? I don't think it's 4 years for 100 and 120. I think it's a 5 year he's looking for.
I think the only team that he could legitimately leverage us with that could make the argument of paying him that money, I think, is the Knicks, because they're the team that really has cap space. I guess the Miami Heat as well. They also do have a ton of cap space. Those are the two teams. If the Lakers really feel he has that level of interest from one of those two teams, perhaps somebody's willing to offer that contract. And I will say, in regards to the source that this story is coming from, this was from, I believe it's the German Olympic team.
Yeah, the federation leader, I think.
Yeah. So, with that, I looked into it a bit more. Like, this story was essentially, he was talking to reporters. Somebody with the German federation team was talking to reporters and They were just kind of asking about Schroder's availability, and he was not going to be available to the Olympic team because he had this upcoming contract and he didn't want to have any risk to it. And, the source with the German Federation had heard that he's looking for that kind of an offer, and so they weren't going to be able to insure him and, on whatever insurance they would need to have him available to play. So it just wasn't worth the risk, and that's why he's not there playing. And that's why this has become a big story, just because it seems he has that contract expectations. And from an NBA player agent standpoint,
that's
I guess you're not, no one's going to give you that money if you don't ask for it, at least. So if that is the maximum amount of money that the Lakers can pay because we have his bird rights, that's what he should ask for. The Lakers' perspective, we're all hoping that Rob Pelinka is able to negotiate that down, just because I kind of hate talking about NBA player salaries because, these guys work hard. Just from a general life perspective, you want them to maximize their earnings in their lifetime. But as a fan, we understand that a league with a cap limit of how much a team can spend and how much a individual salary can impact future moves, you kind of want a team built a certain way with contracts built at a certain size. So we're all hoping that Rob Pelinka can negotiate that number down.
Work his magic.
Yeah, because otherwise the other options on the market aren't really good. We would really have to be reliant on a good player wanting to take a discount to come to the Lakers if Schroder leaves, because we really might be looking at overpaying him. And I've started to really accept the fact that Dennis Schroder might be back on his team. Yeah, it's really starting to hit me because does Goran Dragic want to take close to a minimum?
No,
something like
he'd
that.
Go back to the Heat at that point.
Yeah, at that point, you just return to Miami. Somebody else is willing to pay you more than that. Dallas will give you more than that, and you can go play with Luka and have fun over there. Is Patty Mills willing to take less to come over here? I think he really likes that Spurs environment. If he's willing to just take a smaller deal, just return there. There aren't great options on the market, so it might be overpaying Dennis Schroder in the offseason.
I'll sneak this.
And I don't feel great about that.
Okay, we've been hearing all the phenomenons of the. Well, first I want to flex my little psychology knowledge. Okay, I think what you were trying to describe with the big old contract at first is the door in the face phenomenon. Okay, I may or may not have Googled that to verify, but yeah, it's where you present something very big and then go a little bit lower. Just a little flex there, but I completely forgot what I was going to say now. But oh goodness. Okay, I'll let you talk a little bit. I'll try to remember how did I just forget?
Yeah, so it is important to stress for Lakers fans because I have seen some people arguing this point that, if we let Dennis Schroder go, we can just go offer that money to someone else. No, we traded that Danny Green's contract and the draft pick, and we got Schroder, and we got him because we have his bird rights, and that way we can pay him and go above the cap and retain him. So if he decides to leave, we don't get that money back. We're close to the cap limit. There's not there's anyone that we can just sign at a decent amount of money. We have pretty much an exception, which will be around, I think, $8 million ish. I'm not a cap guru by any means, but other than that, we'd have minimum contracts to offer out. So we're not really in a good place. Getting our guys back and perhaps flipping them is the best avenue at this point. So flipping Dennis Schroder on that contract is very difficult, but at the end of the day, I'm going to talk myself into the fact that he's probably returning. So that way, if it doesn't happen and something better happens, I can be pleasantly surprised. So that's how I'm feeling, and I just want to prepare other Lakers fans for the fact that we might see number 17 back on this team.
Yes, and I remembered, however, at least next year, I have some good news for you, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I do think next year is finally the year where the Lakers don't have to pay Luol Deng $5 million a year. So,
oh yeah, it is.
Hey, silver linings. Silver linings.
I mean, if we overpay for Dennis Schroder, that
could be
doesn't
the next
matter.
But
but yeah, it just comes down to like, is Ryan Arcidiacono a better alternative for you Lakers fans? Like Austin Rivers? Like, do you want Raul Neto? I'm looking at the market for point guards, and I think everyone here could get a solid deal. Like, the way I've seen Knicks fans complain about Elfrid Payton, I'm not interested. There's just not really anyone that provides like spacing or skills that we'd actually need. There's also the fact that Schroeder's 26. When the Lakers front office decided to get to a younger timeline, like, we purposely moved on from Rajon Rondo. Like, there was a reason JaVale McGee was traded. There was a reason Dwight Howard was not brought back. The front office wanted to get younger. We wanted to add some speed to this team, and Dennis Schroder was a huge part of that. So we can look at the playoff disappointment, but at the end of the day, he had a solid regular season. Like, it's not like we had these complaints as Lakers fans when we were like the second, third seed, and we were having a pretty good year, and Dennis Schroder was looking like a pretty okay secondary ball handler. So we can just, at this point, if he's coming back, I'm just hoping another year of being more familiar with the team and knowing where guys' spots are, and hopefully improving his 3-point accuracy might, just make it worth it. Because at the end of the day, us being a contender, us being a title threat will hinge on Anthony Davis and LeBron James. And if we still have those guys, we just need those guys, the others, to bring something.
Yeah, a little more than 0 points in a playoff game.
Yeah, that's all I'm asking for.
So, but I have been hoodwinked, bamboozled, and led astray. Deng's contract still goes to next year. That is the last year next year. So,
oh wow,
just a little.
Wow,
I'm sorry for hyping us up on that. I've been lied to.
Yeah, well, again, like the point I'm looking at it here, point guard market's not great. Like,
it's not.
Dante Exum, can I interest you in Ish Smith?
Well, we appreciate you.
Reggie Jackson's not in our price range anymore. He's getting a max deal.
He is definitely getting a max.
So
he did the reverse Schroeder.
Yeah, I mean, low key one here. Can we convince Darren Collison to come out of retirement again?
We were
perhaps?
teased a little bit last year.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe he's done
at this point.
I think he's a Jehovah's Witness, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I may take him over Raul Neto, so that's the market.
Yeah. So when you put it like that, maybe some people will be a little less on the Shanghai Sharks side and a little more on let's try to keep him back maybe. But yeah. I guess I don't think there has been any Kuzma rumors, but I mean, a little more just to dive in onto the free agency. I did manifest this about 1 or 2 episodes away. Like I said, man, I'm tapped in. I got my sources. Pelinka's, he's a call away. Okay, so it's coming out a little bit. I didn't want to do it myself because I like to let other people get their shine. But Carmelo has been rumored to have some interest in the Lakers, and if you really think about it, it's kind of like connecting the dots. It's not hard to stretch why he would want to go to the Lakers. They do need a scorer in that second unit. And, I mean, let me ask you this. Are you a big Melo guy? Just in general.
I'm about I'd say average on him. He's an all-time player, Hall of Famer. But, I'm not going to say he's like an all-time favorite of mine by any means.
All right. Because all I'm saying is your love for Westbrook and Carmelo, it's kind of presents a little fork in the road there. But, yeah, I'm all down for it, depending on the money. I don't think he's going to get... I don't know what the situation with the mid-level exceptions are. I do think Marc Gasol is still within that, and we'll talk about him a little bit later just to tease you guys for any Marc Gasol enjoyers out there. But, yeah, Carmelo, he just fills a void that we kind of need. We need to score. The defense, I don't really see that as being a focal point of his. Hot take alert, but provides that veteranship. What we're trying to say is we need a little bit of that banana boat energy within the Lakers. That's basically my most point. But, I mean, if you think about it, he was on the Trailblazers, who were a fringe contender, to be a little nice about them. But he has been nice. His efficiency is nice. He averaged 40-40 and a 40-40-90 stat line, basically. 13.4 points, 3.1 rebounds, and 1.5 assists. And he played 69 games, so, I mean, it's pretty nice from a veteran, especially one who is 37. So, I do think that I do think that's one of the more favorable free agents that is probably going to happen. The money situation is just something that we're just going to have to see. But there's not that many teams looking for a Carmelo, so... As far as competition goes, I'd just say maybe Didn't you manifest the Nuggets Carmelo reunion?
Yeah, I mean, so I suggested 3
happen,
spots
bro.
for Melo, actually. I suggested the Lakers, I suggested the Nuggets, and I suggested the Knicks. I low-key think the Clippers could be a sleeper option for Melo, to be honest, but neither here nor there.
The Nuggets aren't going to happen.
I want to say...
sorry. I'm so sorry, man.
If it happens, you heard it here first. That's all I'm going to say.
I know you're not going to indulge on this bet, but I would bet quite the money that he does not return to the Nuggets. But, hey, if anyone out there wants to bet with me that he wants to go to the Nuggets, there's a certain amount of cash that I will offer for him not to go. So, because there's just, the guy, they won't even show him on their social media. So, there's just a certain level of tolerance over there that they just apparently don't have for him, and their fans, a lot of their fans don't like them. Now, I'm not going to generalize it, but there's just a weird hatred for him over there. Maybe hatred's a strong word, but that's enough of our Carmelo dialogue. I think just to sum it up, would love to have him.
Yeah, I mean, just to go one more second on Melo, I have gone like a 180 on the whole Melo to the Lakers thing. Because if you recall, like, there was 2 years ago, it was the 2019 year or whatever. Yeah, 2019 year that we had like Lance Stevenson and Mike Beasley, and that was the year Melo was pretty much out of the league, and there were rumors like perhaps he would make that return with the Lakers, and ended up being the Blazers. But I was totally against him coming to the Lakers at that point because like we weren't as good defensively that season, so like we can't withstand adding Melo, and then we did not have 3-point shooters that season, and he's going to want to take mid-range jumpers, and I was just totally against it. But now that the composition of the team is so different, like, I would love him as a small ball option. Like, he would really be a veteran version of Kuzma, because...
Ooh, is that like a backhanded compliment?
No, because Kuz is a better defender at this point, obviously, but one of Kuzma's roles on this team was to be like a spark plug scoring option. And that was something that would come and go with him. And I think that comes and goes with Melo at this point of his career. But if we can add him to this point while potentially still retaining Kuzma, that gives us at least 2 options to like try and roll out in small ball lineups with Anthony Davis at the 5. Like, Kuzma, let's give you a shot, see if you have it going tonight. If not, hey, we can throw in Melo as the 4 in those lineups. And, maybe he doesn't hold up as well defensively, but we have Anthony Davis as a rim protector. So that will anchor it a bit. We gave post-up possession this season to Andre Drummond. I am far more comfortable with Carmelo Anthony posting up. So I think on the nights he has it going, he legitimately was forcing help for Portland. So that is something I'd like to see on this team. Like you stated, we need scoring. So I'm all in on Carmelo coming to LA and joining the Lakers.
All right, I'm just going to push back on your love for him with me saying if you can't love Melo at his worst, then why should you love him at his best when he's scoring 20 points for us in the playoffs? Not averaging, but he had his spurts against us, so who says he can't replicate that? And him winning a ring would certainly be something, because with Chris Paul possibly acquiring his bijou, then he'd be up there for players you want to see win a ring. But hey, man, if we can do it on our team, that'd be awesome. And yeah. So, but speaking of a little bit more free agency and a little more into the role players, who is we'll play a little game. Who's the one person who you would put your chips on the line to acquire and would outbid a certain team who is a competitor?
Yeah. So this is a guy him coming to the Lakers would kind of be depending on him taking a pay cut to come here. I acknowledge that. I understand that he is a shooter and these guys get overpaid at times. But Doug McDermott,
there it is.
I think would be really good. I was telling you before we started recording, I was monitoring the Pacers as their season was going on. I'm like, he's a free agent. They don't know what they're doing with their double big situation. And, they're having a whole coaching flame out. Like, Doug McDermott definitely needs a new home. And, LA is fantastic. Just come on over here. You're a shooter. You fit in perfectly. And he is a guy that He has some off-the-dribble ability. Not that we're going to ask him to be a ball handler or anything, but on a closeout, he can put the ball on the floor and try and get to the rim. So I like Doug McDermott's fit on the Lakers, and if he would be willing to take a mid-level exception kind of deal to come here and ring chase, I would, be the happiest person on earth to get that kind of shooter.
How old is he? 29.
You said what?
He's 29. Okay. Yeah. I was going to be on my Steve Jones a little bit, do the age check over there, but yeah, I agree a little bit. If we want to go bold, I would love to have Derrick Rose just so I can get his jersey because, Roze, you can connect the dots a little bit there, but I don't think the Lakers will have quite enough money for Derrick Rose, and it's kind of a weird thing between Derrick Rose and LeBron that happened with Cleveland. Not that matters as much, but that would be cool. But we're trying to be realistic a little bit here. Norman Powell, he's getting a bag. Dinwiddie, he's getting a bag. He's getting a bag just because I was just a little there's a little conundrum there with his injury. So Will Barton would be cool, but I think I don't know. I think he might take his player option, which is $13.25 million, and maybe go back to. I think he's going back to Denver, but I think he's opting out, and he should be getting a lot more money than 13.
I'm going to interject. I don't think Will Barton's going back to Denver.
Ooh.
I don't know if he comes to the Lakers because of our financial limitations, but I think Will Barton's out of there. He's a guy that really wants to start. He's wanted to pretty much his whole career. And with Porter Jr.'s ascendance, and they've added Aaron Gordon to that team, like even if he can start for them to begin the year, just because Jamal Murray's out, and maybe they put like him and what's his name, Morris in the starting lineup. Yeah, the 1 and 2. Also Gary Harris is gone.
It's a good depth.
But I think he's probably looking for a situation where he can get some more touches.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if he just returned because, the Nuggets are looking like a top 3 contender for at least the next 5 years. So there's some at least safe, like he can be a contender for quite a bit if he does take a little less money, but we will certainly see about that. So at least for
calling it now, Will Barton to San Antonio.
I just don't like free agents going to San Antonio. I'm sorry. I'm not a San Antonio hater. I love everything about San Antonio. I like the Riverwalk. I like the culture over there. It's just boring. I'm sorry. Not that the team is boring, but when a player goes to San Antonio, it's just boring. And
DeMar DeRozan's leaving. There's going to be a vacuum there for a scorer. I think Will Barton will, be eyeing that. Like, there's some young guys that he can start ahead of and, kind of help progress a bit. And I think that's probably where he slides in.
That's very true. And I have seen some DeMar DeRozan slander on the timeline. There was a guy, I'm not going to say his name, but not that he would hear this, but he was saying that a Tim Hardaway Jr. exit and DeMar DeRozan entrance would be a quote-unquote lateral move. That had me a little offended, although I'm not very tuned in with the DeMar DeRozan culture, but like, let's try to respect the guy here. And hey, man, if he does take a massive pay cut to the Lakers, which is not going to happen, spacing-wise, that'd be horrendous, but that certainly does provide a score that we do need. So,
I mean, are the Spurs interested in the Dennis Schroder signing trade?
I don't see why Schroder would exactly want to go to San Antonio, going from LA. Again, it sounds like I'm hating on San Antonio. I really do love the place, but I just don't think Schroder would be the type of guy to go from LA to San Antonio. And that would be, sure, I guess. That would certainly be good for Will Barton or Dennis Schroder in terms of maximizing individually, but it is what it is, I guess. I guess my role player is an interesting one, I guess. I don't know. I've had a few options. Do we think Montrez is coming back, opting into the player option?
Man, these ones are so tricky for me with the options because it really comes down to like what does the market look like for Trez?
And last year was a little surprising. He had like absolutely no market.
Off the top of my head, I'm really trying to think of like teams in need of another big, and in need of like he's not a big, he's not gonna be getting double, like pulling down a bunch of rebounds. He's more of a scoring, needs a ball handling pick and roll threat to play with. Like, what team is in need of that right now? Like,
that's very true.
Maybe Toronto, they could use a big, but like, is Trez the kind of big that they're interested, especially with his defensive issues? Like, he doesn't necessarily fit into the schemes that they want to do, but maybe being in a lineup with OG Anunoby and Fred VanVleet will be enough to, help him out there. But I'm not sure what the other team is there.
Yeah, there's not a team that comes to mind immediately that would say, "Hey, here's a 4-year extension."
Yeah,
4 years signage.
Maybe Indiana trades Sabonis and they decide to keep Turner, and then maybe it makes sense to bring in Trez to play the 4 next to Turner.
That would be weird, seeing Trez in a Pacers jersey.
Yeah,
I think he's coming back just because I don't know if the market is right for him yet. I do think this at some point people are going to realize the value he has, and there will be a
I like Trez with us.
Huh?
Yeah, I'd like Trez with us. I think one team, because I'm looking through all teams now, trying to just decide off the top of my head. I think Charlotte could make some sense.
They could.
They had, Biyombo and Cody Zeller this season. They want another big, and they're like, Biyombo has no hands at all. So Trez would
LaMelo and Trez
catch a lot more lobs,
with Miles Bridges too.
Than Biyombo was doing, yeah. So I think that'd be an interesting landing spot for him.
Lob City and the Queen City? Question mark? Perhaps.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I believe he's also, his hometown is also kind of like down south-ish area, maybe like around Charlotte. I don't know specifically. I want to say Alabama.
I'll look that up for you. Tarboro, North Carolina. So, I've not heard of that city before. It is in the middle of nowhere, somewhat. It's closer to Rocky Mount than it's far away from Charlotte. But I see it's in the state, so we're gonna count that.
Yeah,
it's certainly a lot closer than Alabama, but I mean maybe I didn't have any idea where he was from, so I'll give you kudos for that. But yeah. That'd be a decent fit. Now, you're kind of convincing me a little bit here. I would like to see him on the Hornets, maybe, because that's Lob's deluxe.
Like, I would like him back on the Lakers,
sure.
But just like
as a plan,
as someone who also enjoys the Hornets and watched a lot of them, I would like him there as well. So, wishing all the best to Trez, for sure. I'm also looking it up. He declined to say whether he'll be back or test free agency. Like in his exit interview, so we will see.
We will certainly see. I'm gonna go out of the blue here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Am I gonna go out of the blue? Ooh. See, I wanna propose a certain polarizing two figures here. One less polarizing, one completely polarizing to Lakers Nation. Can you take a guess as to who would be the most polarizing player to arrive? That is a role player.
Polarizing role player to join the Lakers.
There's a caveat to that joining the Lakers part. If you know what I mean. I don't think you're catching my flow here.
At all.
Okay.
So,
Danny Green, maybe.
Would it be like
Danny Green? Question mark? Do we want him back?
Danny Green. Oh, I would love Danny Green back. Without a question. Because, to be honest, he was not bad during the regular season during that title year. Like, he disappeared in the playoffs, and he did have nagging injuries. Like, I'm one of the guys, I'll defend our guys. I was furious at Danny Green during that playoff stretch. But I'm not going to act like I wasn't also begging for him to soak up more of Rondo's minutes during the regular season. So, that he even when he wasn't hitting his shots, he was playing, good enough defense, blocking and trailing, just provided some size. I would love Danny Green back.
How about a little Chris Dunn dialogue here? I'm a big Chris Dunn guy. Like, no?
No. Yeah, I'm sorry, shutting it down.
Immediately. Why?
Immediately. Like, he would be really good as a defender.
Yes.
He would come in.
Yeah, I can see your point.
He would rival Caruso for, like, best point of attack defense on the team. He wouldn't provide anything else.
So, maybe that's very true. Because I was just thinking, let's just add the rich get richer with defense. But now that I think about it, in his 4 games played, he did average a 8.3 field goal percentage and 0% from the 3, amounting to 8.3 efficiency. And I think he's out of the lineup for the Hawks, who were, even without Trae Young, he didn't see any minutes. And I guess that is the harsh reality of Chris Dunn, but yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather bring Ben McLemore back, who played no defense and could at least be
a shooter,
a flamethrower on occasion.
He certainly was a flamethrower. I would like to see. Would you rather have, in a hypothetical situation, would you rather have Wesley or Ben McLemore back? That's a tricky one, for me at least.
I'm going Wes because, for one, like, the defense was more often there with him. If Wes had a bad matchup, he was horrible defensively. Like, Devin Booker cooked him. But, in the matchups where he was able to use his strength and, had enough size, he was very valuable. The shooting would come and go. But on balance, he was a good 3-point shooter for us, I'd say. So I would rather have him back because we know what we're going to get from him defensively as well. And Ben McLemore was also out of the rotation a lot. way more than Wes was.
Yeah, I see your point. However, I'm seeing a pattern. Like we've talked about this before. I'm looking at their 3-point percentages. It's below their career averages, which is just adding to just supporting the whole shooters in LA. But it is what it is. Maybe, like you said, maybe Dougie McBuckets can break that curse. That would certainly be something to see. Please. But yeah, I think.
But I'm sorry. You were gonna say?
I was not gonna say something. Go ahead.
So to transition into someone who is not going to be with the team anymore, Jason Kidd departed from the assistant coaching staff for a job in Dallas, and he has been replaced by a new assistant coach in David Fizdale. I'm going to ask you first how you feel about this hiring.
Not as strongly as you do would be the word, or the sentence, because you came out of the blue, were like, oh my god, I hate this. I'm no longer going to be a Lakers fan. I'll see you with the Wizards. I have left the team. This is my breaking point. But no, like, on a serious note, I'm not much of a gonna overreact. Not saying that you are, but that was a complete joke. But I don't really care, to be honest, as far as, like, the pushback. Like, he's a good assistant coach. He has, I think the main factor here is that he had a relationship with LeBron in Miami. And, that's as far as I'll go. He has, as a head coach, certainly not up there with the Popoviches of the world. Not that many are, but his head coaching history has certainly not been the greatest. You could say, well, the teams he's been on, this and that, but I don't know. The thing is, he's not a head coach, and I saw a funny reaction where, like, all of this dialogue about David Fizdale is almost like you'd be kind of happy that he's not coaching for the Knicks as a head coach with these attributes. But, yeah, as an assistant coach, he has what you need defensively. I know your argument for, well, we do need an offensive mindset type of coach. Well, he has a little bit of history with some of the systems that the Heat ran within LeBron's time there. So there's at least some hope for you, at least. I mean, I'll let you talk because I feel like you can contribute a little more strongly on the David Fizdale talk. You seem to be a little bit more off than me, at least, on the hire.
So I have calmed down since my initial reaction, as tends to happen.
Are you a Lakers fan still? Are you still with us?
But I am still with us. However, it's not that, like, I think David Fizdale is this awful hire, because to me, it's like, whatever. Like, that could have been anybody, and I would have been, almost the same. I just really would have wanted somebody to come in and specialize on offense. And just, like, come in, and their sole focus is going to be, I'm going to watch all the game footage and figure out how we're going to maximize the non-LeBron minutes, because that has been a consistent issue with LeBron James teams. I totally understand why that happens. He is so ball dominant in a way that when he goes out the game, there's just no way for your offense to replicate what he gives you. I get all of that, but we have to figure something out. Like, the title year, our non-LeBron minutes were a lot of Rondo as ball handler, and we know what the complaints were with Rondo during the regular season. It was, not a lot of pace at times, so it would slow down to Anthony Davis post-ups with bad spacing. It was just not all that pleasant. And I've just had to watch really poor half-court offensive basketball for 2 straight seasons. And I just wanted somebody that would, like, throw in the occasional, like, off-ball screen, like, throw in the occasional Spain pick and roll. Like, I just feel like what we do is so boring and basic. And I'm not asking for anyone to come in and install the, like, beautiful Spurs ball movement basketball system here where everyone's passing the ball and getting equal opportunities. I'm not asking for that. I feel like we can move the ball better than we currently do. the past 2 years, that as good as Frank Vogel has been, and I don't have a ton of complaints about him as head coach. I've generally liked him in his 2 years as coach, but he's also been towards the bottom in efficiency on out of timeout plays. Like, we can be a bit better. That's my issue, and I just don't know that, like, David Fizdale as an assistant really lifts the ceiling on the offense in a way where an offensive-minded, like, just an offensive perfectionist to just come in. I was listening to the, the Lakers Exceptionalism podcast with Tom Zayas. I forget the name of his co-host, but he recommended stealing one of, I think it's Denver's assistant coaches, who was also on Frank Vogel's coaching staff in both Indiana and in Orlando, and he ran the offense for them, and he was, he's really specialized in a lot of half-court screening stuff, and when I heard that suggestion, I'm like, please get this guy. And it just feels kind of disappointing that David Fizdale just kind of feels like a general assistant coach, and not someone that's going to... Yeah, not even necessarily a cop-out. He just feels like he's going to come in and, like, he's going to have his hands on the defense. He'll have his hands on, whatever it is that Frank Vogel decides to just kind of, like, hand out, and how he dishes out responsibilities. But he's not going to be someone that's just solely focusing on offense in the way that I think this team needs.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. I do think, but I'm not gonna push back on it. But, like, what more? Like, I don't really understand, because, like, well, I do understand that there's certainly with LeBron off the court. I mean, you said it yourself, with most LeBron teams, there's just not much you can do, because the role players around him are built within a system that is LeBron and now AD. So I see, my argument would just be, like, I just don't see that as a huge need. But then again, it's not like you're competing with that many people for an offensive-minded coach. So I see what you're saying. I'm just not as strong on it, and I don't think it's make or break. But for the viewer, perhaps it just provides less pain when LeBron is off the court. So
I think what I want to do perhaps is, maybe I'll make a video and, like, put it out on the Strive for Legacy channel of just looking back at some of our half-court possessions, and just to kind of point at situations where we potentially could have been better. Because, I think when LeBron James or Anthony Davis isolate, defenses focus on them. If they're posting up, whenever they have the ball in general, like, heads will turn. And I think we can do a better job of cutting. We can do a better job of off-ball screening to leverage our guys who aren't ball handlers and get them some separation, get them better looks from three, get them better looks cutting to the rim, and put them in better positions to foul. For example, the Knicks were not, like, a really good three-point spacing team. They weren't, they didn't have guys who were snipers by any means, but they really leveraged cutting very well to, like, when Julius Randle would post up and defenses are sucked in and, helping and getting to him, those guys would cut at really good times, and that's why Julius Randle was able to average career high assist numbers. Before the start of this season, you could not have convinced me that Julius Randle was a better passer than Anthony Davis. So why can't Anthony Davis, why can't we put Anthony Davis in more of those situations? He has gotten better at his reads off doubles, and I just think we can have our guys cut and post him up in better spots to, provide spacing for cuts and give him easier reads to make.
Yeah.
All I'm asking for.
Maybe a little sneaky attribute to him coming. He was born in Los Angeles, so maybe just wanted to go back to LA. I wouldn't blame him, but Yeah, we'll see how that goes. If at some point the half court offense is worse than the NBA history, then I'll be here for you saying I told you so and all of that. I'll let you spit at that point, but yeah, there's certain improvements to be made, and you just can't like be a negative when LeBron isn't on the court because it just doesn't help, especially as the guy gets older. You don't want to have to rely on LeBron more and more and more as he ages. It's not a good pattern. So, yeah, do you think that about does it for the Lakers dialogue as we transition into the playoff talk?
Yeah, we have spent a lot of time on Lakers talk. So let's get to a bit more general NBA and start getting into this NBA playoff recap. So which series?
Wait, let me pause you right there. How are your Clippers doing? How are they doing?
So I didn't get to catch the game.
Could you recap for me perhaps?
The Clippers are in Cancun.
Oh no!
Man.
Say it ain't so. No, really.
It is.
Oh, that's really unfortunate.
I will point out that when we did the last pod, I said, my prediction for that series was that the Suns were going to win in 4 or 5. Ended up being 6, but, the Suns had a 2-0 lead at the time and hadn't even gotten Chris Paul back. So the Kawhi injury, the Ibaka injury, I was not expecting the Clippers to win this series, but I was hoping the Suns would lose. Is my point.
No, you didn't just want the Suns to lose. You were rooting for the Clippers. I saw the timeline. Saw it. Yeah. You can't hide. It's right. It's 4K right there. I'm just happy it's gonna end. Thank goodness. I cannot bear it.
You're right, but you know what? I will say, I'm not gonna take a victory lap on the Clippers losing here because I know a lot of Lakers fans are, and they're gonna get their jokes off.
I really don't see what, they went down like heroes, like Reggie Jackson.
Yeah,
how about I will reverse here and give the Clippers a little bit of praise. As much as I hate to do it, there's not really much for Lakers to even say at that point because it's not like they blew a 3-1 lead. It's not like they lost to the Mavericks, which is crazy because you're one game away from all madness, and now you win one game, and now you go out the playoffs as best as you can. Crazy stuff. But yeah,
I'm glad you said it because if I did, I'd be called a Clippers fan.
You still are.
For giving them any
to me at least.
Any kind, but but in all seriousness, the Clippers do deserve a lot of credit for this postseason run. The knock on them last season was that they were a fragile team. They could not survive any adversity. The narrative was that they pretty much skated past the Mavericks because of the Porzingis injury and him getting ejected from that game, and then they go on to blow a 3-1 lead and. Everyone got off the Paul George slander. And then this season, they put their heads down. We didn't hear any quotes during the regular season. There was no talking. They came into the postseason. And then when they went down 2-0, they backed it up. They came out of that series against the Mavericks. When they went down 2-0 against the Jazz, they climbed out of that hole in the last 2 games of that without Kawhi Leonard. And then, that Phoenix series, also down 2-0 to start. They push it to 6 and, really fight. And, for some points of that Game 6, it was looking like we would have a Game 7. So I want to give the Clippers a lot of credit here. Again, there are going to be Lakers fans who are getting their jokes off. But, this isn't really a season I think we don't get to let the jokes fly this season because we were the team that couldn't survive the adversity. The Clippers did a tremendous job of battling against the Suns despite their injuries. And a lot of people are, getting their LeBron jokes off, how, Paul George did a better job, but LeBron was also injured. I would like to point out the man was taking a bunch of threes and not driving on that ankle for a reason. But it is what it is. I would have liked to see the Lakers fight as well as the Clippers did in that series. So, props to them, and hopefully we do get to meet them in the playoffs. going forward, because this was a fun team, and I'd really like the chance to beat them.
Yeah, it would have been cool to, like we've discussed, to see the true Battle of LA. But I mean, looking at Twitter a little bit here, just to see some breaking news, perhaps. I mean, no, there's no breaking news. I didn't mean to like set that up that way. But do you think anything happens with Kawhi? Because earlier I would think, like, even if they lost to the Mavericks, I thought there would have been like a 15% chance he leaves. But now with the medical stuff, it didn't seem like he was completely on board. Like I understand maybe he wanted to be like, we'll have a little rafter talk, maybe, or not rafter talk. When he was in the booth, I was a little confused on that. Like, I don't see why you wouldn't be on the bench, help game plan a little bit, provide some assistance. If he wanted to be with his family, I can't really hate on that, but it just seems like he kind of just wasn't that interested. Like, I know he came back for Game 6, but maybe that's just a little passive move to show that, like, what would you say the percentage is that he leaves now that they have been eliminated? And it's kind of been like, oh, well, we can do this again, but we just need you on the team to put us over the top.
Man, the Clippers are an interesting team, and, after that loss, I really haven't even given much consideration to their future. I'm going to, at some point today, start working on a video just like talking about the Clippers and whoever ultimately ends up losing in the East. So I'm going to, write my portion of the script for the Clippers and ultimately look through their cap and look through free agency stuff and kind of figure out what their next moves are. But they're limited in what they can do, and they're really reliant on Kawhi Leonard coming back. He is a very difficult guy to read because for most players, most star players, if we saw them hanging out in the crowd with their family, in a crucial, like, closeout game, that not a closeout game, but, a must-win game, essentially, instead of being down on the bench. Despite the injury, there would have been some concern. There would have been, like, especially this is an impending free agent. Like, if this was Kevin Durant sitting down during the like sitting down with his family during those Warriors series in 2019, this would have been a story like, oh, Kevin Durant is leaving Golden State. But Kawhi is just very difficult to. It really could have just come down to his kid wanted to spend some time with him, so he decided to sit in the crowd instead of on the bench. But from a team perspective, you really would have liked him on the bench, providing his perspective on the game plan and encouraging his teammates. So I do understand that opinion. I just can't see how he can look at this team and decide to leave after making all of this fuss about wanting to come to LA and play in his hometown. At the end of the day, this is still LA. It's still his hometown, and Paul George showed that he is still a premier top player in the league, and that's who he wanted to play with. What are his alternatives for leaving? Going back to
Mavericks
play
and Heat are pushing for.
Now the Mavericks are interesting. The Heat I am not as interested by because Paul George is better. He was better than Jimmy Butler in this postseason. He is a better 3-point shooter. I think he fits better with Kawhi. And then I think Miami has some problems to figure out.
I think they're a dark horse for getting him.
I'd say so, but
Pat Riley, who knows?
I
just find it very weird that he would leave. I don't really would understand that. At least when he left the Raptors, he left a winning team, but really mainly because he wanted to be in LA. Mm-hmm. So if he's pushing that hard and would leave a team as well constructed as they were, and who went to the who were one game away from the Eastern Conference Finals last year, just to be close to family and all of that, then there's not really a main factor. It's not like Paul George is leaving. Then maybe he would leave, but there's not really a reason to leave at that point. But he's hard to read, like you said.
Yeah, he's hard to read. Maybe he left Toronto because he wanted to play on a good team that also had warm weather. So, Miami could check that box and he's out of there. So, who knows at the end of the day? He's very, very difficult guy to track, and it'll be an interesting reaction pod when we finally find out his decision. Congratulations to the Suns. I As much as I want to see them lose, I will give them credit for
Just preying on
consistently fighting. Yeah, for consistently fighting. And, a lot of narratives are flying about the run that they've had. I think some of it is fair and unfair. First, before I even go off on this tangent, what do you think about the Suns' run so far and all of the injury discussion that's been had about their success?
Well, I've recently ran upon and witnessed the expansion of asterisk culture, and that is one of my more infuriating points because people just run with the asterisk stuff. Like, it gets very, 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 very frustrating. And the weird part is I didn't really care when the Lakers got that, but when the Suns get it, I mean, maybe I'm more of a Suns fan than you are a Clippers fan, but it's really not about the Suns. It's more like people in general saying, well, this season has an asterisk on it. You can say that, but you can't just stop there. What is an asterisk? Does it mean more explanation? Because what titles don't need more explanation? I mean, recently, at least in the past decade, ones that were at least clear-cut by their standards would be maybe 2014. But you could say, Wade was washed. You could say 2011. The Lakers were old, or LeBron choked, whatever. Like, every title, by your definition, if you were saying it this season, yeah, I understand that the stars have been more injured, but now that you're looking at it, what team that has been left has not been injured or has not had a star player out? Every team has basically, you could say, it depends on the star that has been out. You could say that there's different levels of impact. Yeah, that's very true, but most of I'm kind of going on the tangent. You were foreshadowing yourself, but I don't know. I feel very strongly about the asterisks. I just don't understand what an asterisk is to many people. Like, this season has been weird. It was weird in the regular season. It was weird when the Lakers got hurt. It's been weird, and whoever wins it, I mean, their fans won't really care, and they shouldn't, because who cares about what another fan has to say about your title? Like, unless you cheated, then maybe you should care, but no one's cheating. It's just, I think an asterisk should only be applied when there's cheating. Now, there has been a lot of injuries, and that's certainly weird, but I don't think there's an asterisk to be attached, unless you want to attach that to most finals runs. But that's my tangent, at least. I don't know what you were alluding to.
To be honest, I do think there is a legitimately very fun and interesting sports discussion in this conversation somewhere. But people have gone so far into the whole, this is an asterisk championship, or like this season is an asterisk championship, so it's not a real title, and that has created a second side of people who are like, you can't talk about injuries at all. Every year there's injuries. Like, there is a middle ground here.
Yes, there's nuance, for sure.
Yeah, like, we can talk about how the fact that the Suns have ran into teams with injuries has impacted their ability to make this run.
Yes, we can bravely say if the Lakers and or Nuggets were not injured, I think one of them would beat the Suns, but that didn't happen. So,
yeah, because let's be honest about it from this perspective. If the Suns had made this run by beating a healthy Lakers team, a healthy Nuggets team, and a healthy Clippers team, we would be talking about this like it's one of the greatest runs to the finals in NBA history. Running through those three teams, like, that would be tremendous. But the fact that they, faced with Anthony Davis out, with Jamal Murray missing, and then Kawhi Leonard was out for that series, that should impact our view of this run. But that shouldn't mean it's an illegitimate run or like anything like that. Like, you beat who's in front of you. Unfortunately, in this season, those teams didn't happen to be 100%. The only thing where I think, like, you can really take that discussion is like, all right, if you want to say next season, I don't think the Suns are going to be this series, because this is where I kind of fall in this discussion of, like, I said this during our series with the Suns. Phoenix really got the advantage of being healthy all season and not dealing with any absences from, COVID protocol. And that helped them in the standings get to the 2 seed. Like, just objectively, it helped them get to the 2 seed in the standings. The Lakers were at the top of the conference, had some injuries, and then dropped. The Clippers had guys in and out, and all over the place. So just there was a change in standings in the regular season that Phoenix benefited from because of their health. There also was a benefit that Phoenix received in the playoffs. So my perception of them next season, if everyone is healthy, I don't think Phoenix is this Western Conference level team, but that only impacts next season. Congratulations to your run this year. And, next season I'm going to have my eyes to see if they can prove some things. And I think that's the lens people should view it from, but not that this team is completely illegitimate and that they're a bad team and things like that, because we've had these kinds of discussions before. And it really comes down to every title is not made the same. Every run isn't made the same. Each team has a different degree of difficulty, and we can rank or favor different title teams based on how difficult their road was. But, at the end of the day, only one team that season won those 24 postseason games.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know. Let's wrap it up with a little bit of predictions here. Well, there's really only one series to predict, and that series also has an injured star. One of the more impactful injured stars.
Two injured stars in this one.
Yeah, the Trae Young and him stepping on the ref was one of the weirder things to happen, and Giannis literally hyperextending his knee backwards and having quote-unquote no structural damage is also an even more weird thing, but that's a weird, like a good thing to happen. But now that I would assume that Giannis is not going to play for the rest of the series, I think that's a safe assumption. Who do you have in that series? I am rooting for a Hawks and Suns chaos series myself.
So it's really going to come down to, I don't know if we've got an official word on if Trae Young is playing.
I think it should.
Yeah, it comes down to if Trae Young is available for the Hawks the rest of the series and Giannis is not, I think the Hawks are winning this. If Trae Young is not available for like at least one more game, I think the Bucks have enough to get by. And it's difficult for me. I think the Bucks are a good team, but they have not inspired a lot of confidence with how they've played since the first round. So I'm kind of low on them at the moment. Maybe it's just a bit of recency bias with how poorly their offense has performed, but it's going to come down to whether Trae Young's available in this next game.
Yeah. Like with the Hawks and the Suns, there's just, I can't lose at that point. I am blessed at that point. But the Bucks, Chris Middleton as a number one is certainly different than Chris Middleton at the two spot, and Drew just has been a little up and down in the playoffs, and I'm gonna be blunt. The Bucks are boring to me. I'm sorry, they're just boring. Like with Giannis, they're exciting, but without Giannis, they're just boring. And you can say that about a lot of teams without their stars, but I do love Chris Middleton shooting like the hardest shots and Drew playing defense at some points throughout the game, but I think I would just like to see the Hawks more. That does it. The prediction is a little more tricky, and there's not really X factors to be made just because like they're kind of gone at that point. But
yeah,
I just see the Bucks winning this one, at least game 5.
Yeah, it's game 5.
Game
tonight.
5, right? Yeah, game 5.
Yeah, as we record, as you listen to this, I'm sure the game would have maybe been played. Yeah.
I would go with the Hawks. See, I think it's gonna go Bucks win next game, Hawks win at home, and then game 7 is throw it up in the air and see who gets it. Kind of like with the with the Hawks and the Sixers series. But I do think, I don't know, it's really weird. Giannis being out just completely throws it upside down. But I do think the Bucks are still more talented than the Hawks in terms of having that experience. But it really doesn't seem to matter with Trey, who is just has quite the debut playoff run. So I don't know. I truly think this is the epitome of a toss-up at this point. But I would just like to see the Hawks win, personally.
Yeah, and important to keep in mind that whoever, just historically, the winner of Game 5 typically goes on to win the series. So the prediction might just come down to whoever wins tonight. Because, in my opinion, whoever wins tonight is probably also winning Game 6. I don't think this is going 7.
Interesting point. Then if the Bucks do win, then it's like kind of like a KD situation where, like, is he going to come back in the finals? Is he not? So that would be interesting either way. So I did see an interesting point to where I think Dom posted this, where the Hawks and the Bucks both skipped out on drafting Chris Paul. So it's kind of a Chris Paul revenge series either way. So should be fun.
Yeah.
Chris Paul getting a ring. I'm not going to say it just because, like, the gods of basketball just don't want to see that happen. But that would be certainly something I would be an enjoyer of. Do you have any final words to say about the playoffs or the Lakers?
Let's just all join hands for this Giannis Antetokounmpo prayer circle and just pray on his health so he can come and save us from a Suns title.
You had me until that last sentence. You were this close, but yeah, we appreciate you guys listening. If you did make it this far, you're awesome. If you want to show us you are awesome a little more, make sure to leave us a 5-star rating. Leave us a cool review. Yeah, we're trying to
follow the podcast on
yes,
Twitter.
On Twitter.
At
you
Legacy
always get me on
Strive.
that. Yes, at Legacy Strive.
Yep.
Let's go. I got it right. Yeah, we're going to be a little more active on there, although there's not much Lakers news to be active, but towards the draft we will be a little more active, and there should be a little news about that, and we'll try to get some draft people, since we aren't really into that completely, although we are starting to. So it's still Chris Duarte 2022 or 2021 for me. I don't know about you, but yeah,
watch more film. I'm all in with you on that. This is a Chris Duarte to the Lakers podcast.
Yes, we are establishing ourselves as such. And yeah, thank you for listening. That about does it.